wherever you are right now, and whatever you're doing, I actually want to invite you to do something really simple. Just, take a slow, deep breath in.
Like a real intentional breath.
Yeah, exactly. Hold it for just a second. Now, just let it out. It feels good to just pause for a moment, right? But here is a completely mind-bending fact from the research we're diving into today.
Oh, this part is wild.
It really is. The carbon dioxide you just exhaled, it contains carbon atoms that have been on this unbelievable journey. Like, those exact atoms might have once been circulating inside a dinosaur.
Right. Or they might have been dissolved in some prehistoric sea millions of years ago.
Yeah. Or locked tightly inside, the crushing weight of a limestone cliff, or even burped out of a glowing magma chamber. It's crazy to think about.
It is, because they're constantly on the move, right? And they're going to go on to completely new places long after you and I are done with them. Carbon is fundamentally the great traveler of the Earth system.
It never just stays put.
No, never. It's forever circulating between the air, the deep oceans, living things, and the rocks beneath our feet.
And that endless circulation is really the core mission of this deep dive today.
Oh.
We're looking at the carbon cycle, we're taking the sources we have and using them to, sort of shift how we all understand climate change.
Yeah, getting away from the typical framing.
Exactly. Moving away from the overwhelming buzzwords, the political noise, the doom and gloom, and just looking at this through the lens of a highly logical story about stocks and flows.
Which I love, because it really is just a mechanical story. It's about where stuff is stored on our planet and how fast it moves around.
Right. And we're taking this at a warm, unhurried pace today. You do not need a science degree for this, I promise. Just, your natural curiosity.
Because understanding this cycle, like how it physically functions, it explains both how the Earth has managed to stay comfortably livable for billions of years and exactly why our current situation is so precarious.
Yeah, it grounds the whole thing. So if carbon is moving everywhere and building everything, we should probably establish why it's so special in the first place.
That's a great place to start.
When I was going through the source material, I kept picturing carbon as, like, the ultimate versatile Lego block. You know, the classic bricks that just seem to connect to absolutely everything nature wants to build?
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture of biology, that Lego analogy actually holds up perfectly.
Yeah.
And it's all because of carbon's unique chemical superpower.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, a single carbon atom naturally forms 4 strong bonds. And because it has those 4 distinct connection points, it can link up into endless complex chains, branches, rings, you name it.
So it's basically the scaffolding.
Exactly. Every single protein in your body, every strand of your DNA, the membranes of your cells, they all require a carbon scaffold to exist. Life is essentially just the process of constantly assembling these carbon blocks into living tissue and then taking them apart again.
Taking them apart again, right? It's the physical scaffolding of the living world. But the sources point out it doesn't just hang out in living things, right?
No, not at all.
The Earth has these massive storage vaults, I think the scientific term they use is reservoirs, where carbon is kept when it isn't busy being part of a plant or an animal. And there are 4 main ones.
Right, 4 big vaults.
You've got carbon floating in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide gas. You've got a massive amount dissolved in the ocean. You've got the land, which is all the forests, grasslands, and crucially, the dirt and decaying plant matter. And then you have the rocks.
And the sheer scale of that 4th vault, the rocks, it is genuinely difficult to wrap your head around. It is the absolute biggest store of carbon by far.
Like, how big are we talking?
We're talking about vast expanses of limestone, sedimentary rocks, the deep earth. And, this also includes fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas, which are really just ancient carbon-based life that geological pressure has turned to stone over millions of years. Yeah, well over 99% of all the carbon on Earth is locked away in that rocky vault.
Over 99%. Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because if nearly all the world's carbon is buried underground or dissolved in the deep ocean, the atmosphere is actually one of the smallest vaults for carbon.
Yes. Relatively speaking, it's tiny.
When I read that, it totally threw me. I mean, why is the smallest vault the one we hear about the most in the news?
Well, ironically, because it's the smallest, it's also the most vulnerable. Think of it like a very small glass of water.
Okay.
If you drop a spoonful of salt into that tiny glass, it drastically changes the chemistry of the water instantly, right?
Wow.
It's undrinkable.
Right, yeah.
But if you drop that exact same spoonful of salt into an Olympic-sized swimming pool, The change is entirely unnoticeable.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Because the atmospheric vault is comparatively tiny, any extra carbon we add to it changes its overall makeup, and specifically its ability to trap solar heat very quickly and very noticeably.
Small vault, highly sensitive to extra deposits. That makes perfect sense. So we know where it lives, the air, the ocean, the land, and the rocks. But the really fascinating part of the sources is how carbon physically moves between these
It
vaults.
flows.
Exactly, the flows. It splits this movement into two main loops that run at completely different speeds. Let's look at the biological fast lane first, because this is the loop we interact with every single day.
Right, the one that keeps us alive.
Yeah, to use an analogy, the fast loop is kind of like the Earth's daily operating budget. Every living thing on the planet is constantly borrowing and returning carbon just to stay alive, turning it over in a matter of years or, decades.
And the primary engine driving those deposits from the air into living things is photosynthesis.
Right, which we all learned about in school.
We all know the term from grade school, yeah. But in the context of this cycle, it's not just plants, making food. It is the actual physical mechanism dragging carbon gas out of the sky and turning it into solid matter.
It's crazy to picture it that way.
It really is. A tree isn't really growing from the ground up. It's pulling carbon dioxide out of the air, using sunlight to strip the carbon atoms away, and literally building its wood and leaves out of thin air.
Basically a materialization trick. And then the withdrawal happens, right? Animals, including us, eat those plants, essentially consuming that trapped carbon, and we breathe a portion of it right back out into the air as carbon dioxide.
Exactly. And when things die, decomposers in the soil break them down and release the rest of the carbon back into the sky.
So it's the daily operating budget in action. Through photosynthesis, out through respiration and decay.
Yeah, and that biological engine is running in the ocean, too, on a massive scale. Carbon dioxide physically dissolves into seawater at the surface.
Like carbonation in a soda.
It's the exact same mechanism as gas dissolving into a liquid to make a fizzy drink, yeah. And once the carbon is in the water, tiny marine plants called phytoplankton, which are essentially just microscopic algae, they photosynthesize just like trees do. They pull that dissolved carbon in to build their cells.
Which brings up a massive favor the ocean is doing for us. The source material highlights that the ocean acts like a giant sponge, and it has already absorbed roughly a quarter to a third of all the extra carbon dioxide humans have emitted.
It's an incredible buffer, yeah.
Without the ocean soaking that up, the atmospheric vault would be much more crowded, and the warming we're experiencing would be significantly worse. And I have to push back on the panic I hear around this sometimes.
Sure, go ahead.
If the ocean is absorbing a third of our emissions and saving us from a hotter atmosphere, isn't that a win? Like, why are marine biologists so worried about the oceans taking on more carbon?
That's a really fair question. But the problem is that this atmospheric favor comes with a very steep hidden biological bill. The cost is a process called ocean acidification.
Okay, I've heard that term. What does it actually mean?
When we look at the actual chemistry, the
Yeah.
how of it, when carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, it doesn't just sit there inertly. It reacts with the water molecules to form something called carbonic acid.
So we're physically changing the pH level of the ocean.
We are. The ocean is now about 30% more acidic than it was before the industrial era.
Wow, 30%?
Yeah, it's a huge shift. And here is why that matters to the ecosystem. That carbonic acid essentially hunts down and binds with carbonate ions in the water. It hoards them.
And carbonate is important.
It's crucial. Carbonate is the exact building block that corals, oysters, and countless tiny marine creatures desperately need to build their shells and skeletons.
Oh, wow. So it's stripping the water of their construction materials. It sounds like osteoporosis for the ocean.
That's an incredibly accurate way to picture it, actually. They have to expend significantly more energy just to maintain their shells, let alone grow new ones.
That's terrifying.
And since these tiny shelled creatures form the very base of the marine food web, weakening them threatens the entire ecosystem built on top of them. The daily operating budget of the fast loop gets completely thrown into chaos when the ocean absorbs too much too quickly.
So the daily budget is highly active but incredibly fragile when the balance gets thrown off.
Which brings us to the second loop.
Right.
Yes, the slow loop.
If the fast loop is the daily operating budget, the geological slow loop is Earth's deeply locked retirement vault. And here's where it gets really interesting. This slow loop operates over millions of years.
It's a completely different timescale.
Yeah, and looking at the sources, getting carbon out of the sky and into solid rock, involves two massive slow-motion physical processes.
It does, and it actually starts with some of those same marine creatures we just talked about. When phytoplankton and those tiny shelled organisms die, they sink.
Just drifting down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Billions of tiny carbon-based shells fall to the very bottom of the seafloor like this slow, eternal snowstorm. Over unimaginable stretches of time, that sediment piles up, gets crushed by the weight of the ocean, and is compressed into limestone.
And that physically locks it away.
Right. That physical process takes carbon completely out of the biological fast cycle and locks it away in the stone vault for millions of years.
And there's a terrestrial version of this locking mechanism too, which completely blew my mind. Chemical weathering.
Oh yeah, weathering is fascinating.
I always thought rain just eroded rocks by washing dirt away, but it's actually scrubbing carbon out of the sky. As raindrops fall, they act like tiny sponges, soaking up atmospheric carbon dioxide.
Making the rain slightly acidic.
Exactly. The rain becomes a weak acid. And when that weak acid rain hits certain types of rock on land, a chemical reaction happens. It physically binds that atmospheric carbon into a liquid mineral state called bicarbonate.
And that liquid bicarbonate doesn't just evaporate. It washes into streams, flows down rivers, and empties into the ocean, dragging the sky's carbon along with it.
And then the sea creatures use it.
Right, marine creatures use it to build those shells we mentioned, which eventually sink to the bottom and become limestone. Through weathering and shell formation, the Earth is constantly slowly burying carbon and rock.
But wait, if the Earth is always locking carbon away in this retirement vault, wouldn't the atmosphere eventually run completely dry? Like, wouldn't plants suffocate if all the CO2 is buried? How does the carbon escape the rock vault and get back into the sky?
Through volcanoes.
Volcanoes.
Yep. Set against all this slow burial, volcanoes are the great return mechanism. As the Earth's tectonic plates shift and melt deep underground, that buried limestone and carbon-rich rock gets superheated.
It melts.
It melts, and the carbon is released as a gas. Then volcanoes belch it from deep inside the Earth's crust right back into the atmosphere.
Wait, okay. If volcanoes are constantly burping up greenhouse gases from deep inside the Earth, how has our planet not just turned into a boiling, lifeless greenhouse? Especially since we know the sun has actually gotten substantially brighter and hotter over Earth history.
That is the big question. And what's fascinating here is how these two massive geological forces, volcanic outgassing and rock weathering, balance each other out. It's this slow seesaw that has governed Earth's climate over hundreds of millions of years.
It's a balance.
Yes, and it acts as a remarkably elegant, genuinely self-regulating natural thermostat.
A thermostat. Okay, I want to trace the logic of this, make sure I have it right. If the planet gets too hot, say, there's a huge spike in volcanic eruptions, releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide. The atmosphere warms up, right?
Right.
And a warmer atmosphere means more water evaporates from the oceans. More evaporation means heavier rainfall. And since rain is the thing that causes chemical weathering, more rain means the rocks are scrubbing carbon dioxide out of the sky much faster, washing it to the sea.
You're tracking it perfectly.
So it acts as a brake. It physically pulls the heat-trapping gas out of the air, cooling the planet back down.
You've got it.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is that the feedback loop works perfectly in reverse, too.
How so?
Well, if the planet cools too much, evaporation drops, rainfall decreases, and that chemical rock weathering slows to a crawl. The Earth basically stops pulling carbon out of the air.
But the volcanoes keep going.
Exactly. The volcanoes deep underground don't care about the weather on the surface. They keep erupting, steadily releasing carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
So with the weathering brake removed, that volcanic carbon builds back up in the atmosphere unchecked. The greenhouse effect strengthens, and it warms the freezing planet back up.
So the Earth has effectively been sweating and shivering its way to stability for billions of years. It's brilliant. It's just an incredibly, incredibly slow mechanism.
Very slow. Hundreds of thousands of years.
Which perfectly sets up our current situation. If the Earth has this built-in self-regulating thermostat, why are we in a climate crisis right now? The source material lays the logic out beautifully, and it's because humans found a way to bridge the slow geological vault and the fast biological lane. We engineered a massive short circuit.
Yeah, to understand the sheer scale of the disruption, we have to completely redefine what fossil fuels actually are in the context of this cycle.
Right, they aren't just fuel.
No, coal, oil, natural gas, they aren't just fuel.
Yeah.
They are ancient plants and plankton. They are concentrated pockets of carbon that photosynthesis pulled out of the air tens or hundreds of millions of years ago.
The slow cycle buried them.
Exactly. Geology locked them underground, safely out of the daily operating budget.
And the core of the climate problem is that in just the span of a couple of centuries, human beings basically became the ultimate geological force. We dug into that deeply buried, slow-loop retirement vault, pulled the carbon to the surface, and burned it.
We forced it out.
Yeah, by burning it, we dumped it directly back into the atmosphere. We are taking carbon that the slow geological cycle took millions of years to safely remove, and we are returning it to the sky in a planetary eye blink.
It is the ultimate short circuit.
Yeah.
And the real tragedy here is that the natural thermostat, that chemical rock weathering we discussed,
Yeah.
it does still respond. It is actively trying to do its job right now.
It just can't keep up.
Not even close. It operates on a timescale of tens of thousands of years. It is far, far too slow to counteract the massive, sudden spike of carbon we are dumping into the fast loop in a mere matter of decades.
It's totally overwhelmed.
Right. Because there is no natural fast process capable of mopping up this extra carbon. It just lingers. It stays trapped in the fast loop for centuries to millennia, overheating the air and acidifying the sea.
So what does this all mean? When we put all these pieces of the cycle together, it gives us a really powerful tool for reasoning through the noise. I hear people argue all the time, and maybe you listening have wondered this yourself. They say carbon dioxide is completely natural. Plants need it to survive. We literally breathe it. So how can it possibly be a pollutant?
I hear that all the time, too. It's
Yeah.
a vital distinction to make, and their premise is technically correct. Carbon dioxide is absolutely not bad or unnatural. It's the currency of life.
We're made of it.
The entire biosphere depends on it. The crisis we are facing is purely an issue of speed and balance. We have knocked the cycle entirely out of balance by physically relocating carbon from a slow, deep store to a fast, volatile one at a highly unnatural speed.
That reframing changes everything. It's not a poison, it's just in the wrong place, way too fast. We overloaded the daily operating budget. And understanding exactly how we broke the cycle gives us a perfectly clear map for what the various climate solutions are actually trying to achieve in terms of stocks and flows.
It demystifies the solutions entirely.
It really does. When I looked at the solutions for the biological fast loop, things like reforesting or promoting healthy soils made total sense. We're essentially just artificially inflating the size of the terrestrial checking account so it can physically hold more of the excess carbon.
Right. Planting trees is strengthening the land's ability to hold carbon in the fast loop. But the most critical solution, cutting our emissions and transitioning away from fossil fuels, is simply about stopping the short circuit at the source.
Just turning it off.
Exactly. It means halting the unnatural transfer of carbon from the rock fault to the air.
And then there's the big, flashy tech solution we hear so much about, carbon capture technologies. From a systems perspective, these machines are essentially human attempts to artificially replicate the slow geological burial loop. Right?
They are, yeah. The goal of carbon capture is to engineer machinery that can physically pull carbon dioxide directly out of the air and pump it permanently underground, mimicking what chemical rock weathering and limestone formation do naturally over millions of years.
To synthesize this, I want to use an analogy that really crystallized it for me. It's like living in a house that is actively flooding because a massive underground pipe burst.
Okay, I like this.
Cutting emissions is rushing down to the basement to turn off the main water tap. Planting trees and restoring soil is like throwing down every towel you own to soak up the water that's already ruining the floors. And carbon capture technology is like trying to invent a magical super vacuum that can instantly suck up the water and teleport it outside.
That's a great way to visualize it.
Which makes me ask, with all the grand claims we see in the news and from startups about carbon capture tech, is that super vacuum actually going to save us?
This raises an important question, and the source material is very clear about the caveats here. While the theory of direct air capture perfectly mimics the Earth's natural slow burial loop, engineering it to work at the speed and sheer mass of human emissions is incredibly difficult.
I imagine the scale is just daunting.
It is. Pulling a dispersed gas out of the atmosphere and safely injecting it into bedrock takes staggering amounts of energy and infrastructure. The research suggests that this is an area where careful skepticism about grand claims is absolutely warranted.
We can't just cross our fingers and wait.
No. We can't simply rely on blind faith in future super vacuums to fix a massive cycle we are currently overwhelming.
It really is all about stocks and flows, where carbon sits and how fast it moves. Earth's great, elegant circulation kept the planet livable across almost incomprehensible stretches of time. Our challenge right now is that we reach down into its slowest, deepest vault, and we threw the contents into the fastest loop, quicker than the natural thermostat can possibly adjust.
And our challenge is figuring out how to let the Earth catch up.
Exactly.
Reading the carbon cycle properly really does turn climate change from a political slogan into something you can physically visualize and reason about. It removes the abstraction. It's just plumbing on a planetary scale.
Plumbing on a planetary scale. I love that. Let's bring this all the way back to where we started. Remember that slow, deep breath you took at the beginning of this deep dive? Think about where the carbon in your next exhale is going to go.
It's starting its next journey.
Into a plant on your windowsill, absorbed into the surface of the sea. Perhaps millions of years from now, it will be compressed into stone on a distant ocean floor. It is on a journey that lasts from seconds to hundreds of millions of years.
It's a beautiful thing to think about.
It really is. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on as you go about your day. Look at the physical world around you right now. Look at the plastic casing on your computer or phone. Look at the synthetic clothes you might be wearing. Think about the fuel sitting in your car's gas tank.
It's all carbon.
We are so used to seeing these things simply as products we bought at a store. But chemically, structurally, they're just carbon. There are ancient plants and prehistoric plankton. Next time you look at these everyday items, don't just see a consumer product. Think of them as temporary resting stops for ancient carbon atoms on a billion-year journey.
Just a layover.
The brief layover. They were pulled from the deep, slow rock vault, and right now they are just pausing in your life on a brief layover before they inevitably enter the fast loop of the atmosphere. If we started viewing our everyday material world not as disposable goods, but as borrowed pieces of Earth's slow, ancient vault, how might that fundamentally change our relationship with the things we buy, use, and throw away? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.